Hey everybody, Brent Kessler here with the Money Multiplier. I am totally excited. This is podcast number 1, episode number 1 of the Money Multiplier. And today we're going to talk about an introduction to the infinite banking concept. Well, what is this thing? What is this infinite banking concept thing that you guys have heard about? Well, we're going to talk about that today and how it got started. So anyway, glad to be with you. Again, Brent Kessler. My company is The Money Multiplier, www.themoneymultiplier.com. And we're located down here in Port Orange, Florida. We bump right up next to Daytona Beach is where our home office is. And I've had the pleasure and privilege of being able to teach thousands of people over the last several years this concept and bringing it to the front lines for them, to showing them exactly how they can build wealth through their own debts and expenses. That's right. That's what we're going to share with you today. How are you going to build wealth, or how can you build wealth through your own debts and expenses that you already have? Well, so the banking concept. So anyway, there's this book called Becoming Your Own Banker by R. Nelson Nash. Now, I'll start out by telling you that I first heard this information back in 2006. And I was actually at a chiropractic conference, because for those of you that know me, you know that I was or still am a chiropractor. I owned 5 chiropractic clinics in the Kansas City area. I no longer practice anymore. Sold my last clinic in 2017. Haven't really practiced in the office since, about 2009 or so. Had associate docs in my clinic. But anyway, I first heard about this infinite banking concept in 2006. I was actually at a chiropractic conference, and I heard somebody speak about it, and I looked at it, I listened, I was like, man, that looks really, really good. However, it just looked way too good to be true, right? Have you guys ever seen something like that where you watch something and it looks too good to be true? Well, that was me. So after I got that information, I went home and I really didn't even think about it much anymore. I totally forgot about it. And then I go back to another conference about a year and a half later, and about 10 or 12 of my chiropractic colleagues that were at the previous conference were now at this one. And they were coming up to me and they were just ranting and raving, throwing up all over me about this banking concept, right? How they were able to pay off their debt, how they were able to build their wealth, keep control of their money without working any harder, without taking any additional risk or changing their cash flow. And they were just going on and on about how powerful this was. And I thought to myself, there has to be something to this, right? There's no way that 10 or 12 of my closest colleagues are lying to me. Maybe 1 or 2 are lying, but not 10 or 12. So I went home and I told my wife, I said, we have to start implementing this concept into our life. And at that time, it was February 2008. And I had a total of $984,711 in debt. That's what I owed to the third-party creditors, almost $1 million. I know, you're thinking, how does a guy from Kansas get to be almost $1 million in debt, right? Well, I had my chiropractic offices. I think I had 2 offices at that time. And I had my house that I owed money on. Had my student loans from chiropractic school. Also had a place in the Lake of the Ozarks between St. Louis and Kansas City. That's where I'm coming from you today. And obviously, if you have a house on the lake, you have to have a boat and a wave runner, don't you? Absolutely. There's no way you can't have a house on the lake without a boat and a wave runner, right? So I also am an airplane pilot, and as an airplane pilot, you have to have your own airplane. So it didn't take me a lot to become almost $1 million in debt, right? Well, I put this concept into place, and I was able to pay that debt off in 39 months. I was able to pay it off in 3 years and 3 months. I never had to work any harder, change my cash flow, take any additional risk, or lose control of my money. All I did is I added one step in my financial life, and it drastically improved my financial situation for myself and my family. And that was back in 2008 when I started. Well, actually, back in 2008, I started as a customer. And then in 2012, I decided to start teaching this to other people. So that's what I've been doing now for the last 8+ years is I've been teaching other people, whether it's through a live event, whether it's through a Zoom meeting, a GoToMeeting webinar, or if somebody goes and watches my recorded presentation, I'm able to teach them this concept, and I'm able to assist them and help to apply the principles that I learned, the techniques that I applied in my own financial life to help others break the bonds of financial slavery that they don't even realize they're in and start taking control of their own financial life. So I've been very fortunate and privileged to be able to do that. Well, anyway, how did this infinite banking concept get started? As I stated earlier, there is a book. It's called Becoming Your Own Banker by R. Nelson Nash. Now, back in March of 2019, we lost Nelson, age 87, I believe, 87, 88. So anyway, we lost Nelson back in March. I had the privilege of spending some time with him the month before he passed in February at the annual Infinite Banking Think Tank that's in Birmingham, Alabama. But anyway, Nelson wrote a book called Becoming Your Own Banker. And in that book, the one thing that stuck out to me is, so actually there's a book and there's also almost 2 hours of audio that you can get with the book. Now, not everybody gets the audio with the book. And in my opinion, that's a big mistake. If you get the book, get the audio. And I know some of it, so it goes on the same lines and, it says the same stuff. But some of us can pick up things as an audio, as an audio learner or listener a lot better than you can if you read something, right? So I'm more of an audio guy. And the one thing that stuck out, and he says it within the first 5 minutes of the audio, he says something like this. He says, how about if there's a way to create and build wealth through your own indebtedness? In other words, how about if you can create wealth through your own debts and expenses that you already have? And if you just hear it and it just goes through you one time, so it doesn't just like seem to make sense, right? But if you really kind of just go back and you listen to it, and basically he's saying, build wealth through your own indebtedness. Build wealth through your own debt and expenses. Well, how would you do that? Because if you have debt and expense, isn't that taken away from your wealth? So after I thought about it a little bit more, so I said, okay, I got to see what this is all about. Well, that's exactly what this infinite banking concept is. It is allowing you, it is a tool, it is a process, it's not an investment. This is a process in order to build wealth through your debts and expenses, through the things that you're buying anyway, right? Because a lot of people tell me, they say, well, Brent, I don't have any debt. Everything is paid off. I don't owe any money on my house, my car. I mean, everything is paid off. Well, is that really true? Is it really true because you have everything paid off that you do not owe any debt? No, it doesn't, because just there's everything in life, isn't there? There's taxes. I mean, so who here doesn't have to pay taxes? There's gasoline you put in your car. There's food you put in your belly. You need electricity, right? How comfortable do you think it is here in the Lake of the Ozarks in Missouri in July without any air conditioning? Not very. I like to go to Idaho in the winter to go snowmobiling, right? I believe it was last February so out in Idaho, they had like 160 some inches of snow in 1 month. How comfortable do you think it is in Idaho without any heat in the winter? Not very, right? So you need electric. So you have taxes. You put gas in your car, groceries. So think of all the expenses that you have, the recurring expenses, right? Even though that may not be third-party debt, it's still money that you have to send out to other people, do you not? Because let's just think about money. The definition of money. The definition of money is what? Everybody has different definitions of money. Here's my definition of money, and I don't think you guys would argue with me on this. Money is nothing more than a means of exchange. That's all money is it not? I mean, just think about what you do with money every day. All you do is exchange that money for the products and services that you're buying. We exchange food for money, money for food, car for money, money for car, house for money, money for house, airline ticket for money, money for airline ticket, electric bill for money, money for electric bill, right? All money is a means of exchange for the products and services that we're buying. So that is the definition that I like to use for money. Now, the book, Becoming Your Own Banker, how the infinite banking concept was developed. Well, if you read the book, you listen to the audio, you'll hear Nelson Nash say that back, I believe it was in the 1980s, maybe it was the 70s, but I think it was the 1980s, if I remember right. So anyway, so Nelson Nash, he found himself in a position where he owed $500,000 to creditors in a very high interest rate. And the high interest rate was prime plus a few percent. So even all the way up to 21.5%. He was paying interest on this $500,000 of like 21.5%. And he's like, oh my gosh, what have I gotten myself into? Because Nelson tells you it was all him. He's the one that got into it. Nobody got him into that $500,000 of debt. He got into it. Nobody got me into my debt. I got into it. Everybody that's listening right now, you got your own self into this situation, right? So there's nobody to blame other than us, the people that have gotten us into the situation ourselves. So Nelson found himself there sitting with $500,000 in debt that he owed at this huge interest rate that he had to pay. And anyway, Nelson was a man of faith, and he'll tell you that the infinite banking concept was developed over many, many months of him in the kneeling, in the praying position, saying, Lord God, please get me out of this financial mess that I've created for myself. Nobody else put me there. I put it there myself. I created it. How do I get out? And as Nelson goes on, he says, well, God told him, he says, Nelson, it's all right there in front of you. It's right there, but you just don't see it. So the thing that Nelson had done is he had spent several years paying premiums into whole life insurance policies in mutual companies, right? He had spent all these years paying this money into these policies, but yet he was indebtedness to these third-party creditors like banks and finance companies in the tune of $500,000, having to pay this high interest rate, where at this time, so Nelson goes on to say that, hey, I can use the cash value of these policies. I can borrow against these policies at 5 to 8%, and I have the cash value, so I can borrow from those policies at 5 to 8%, and I can get myself out of this position. So he goes on to say that, hey, so the infinite banking concept was developed over many, many months of him asking for help, how to get out of this financial position. So that's how the infinite banking process got started. And then Nelson Nash wrote the book, Becoming Your Own Banker. I believe it was in 2000 or 2001. And the latest edition, I think, is what is it? The 5th edition of the book. And anyway, I've read that book several times. And when I say several, I'm going to say 40 to 50 times I've read that book. And the way I suggest that you read that book, and it's definitely a book you want to add to your wealth building library. I mean, it is definitely a book that you want to have in your wealth building library. And I would say when you read the book, I would read through it quickly the first time. Go through it quickly. And then the second time, I want you to take a pencil and I want you to read page 1 through 50. And as you're reading it and thoughts or questions come to your mind, I want you to write those thoughts and questions down in the margins of the book, right? So each time I read the book, I get more out of it. And you would think if you read a book 40 to 50 times, oh my gosh, so move on to the next book, right? Well, no, I don't. Because each time I get more out of it. And it is my job now, it is my mission in life to serve as many people, to serve as many of God's children as possible with this powerful message that Nelson Nash left us. And especially before I go on to a big event, like if I'm going to do a big advanced training on the banking concept or an advanced seminar where maybe it might last 2 or 3 days, I will go back through as I'm preparing my notes and the topics that I'm going to go over. Each and every time before a long seminar like that, I will go back and read the book because I'm like, oh my gosh, I forgot all about that. I forgot Nelson said that. I knew it was there, but I just get into my habits and I kind of just forget. So like the details, right? So it really brings your attention back to the details. But let me just tell you this, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, that book has so much detail to it. Every single sentence of that book, you can extract information and peel back the onion a little bit more about what Nelson is really talking about. Now, I don't know if Nelson thought about that and how much detail he put into that book when he wrote it, but I'm just telling you, you will not get it reading it just the first time. You will go back and read it over and over. And I wrote a book called Mapping Out the Millionaire Mystery. Myself and my colleague, Chris Noggle. Chris Noggle's been a client of mine for several years. Chris actually was a financial advisor for New York Life for 16 years. Chris will tell you that they never taught him anything about the infinite banking. He didn't know about it until he met me and I taught him. Well, again, it wasn't me that taught him. Yes, maybe I taught Chris Noggle, but it was because of what Nelson Nash poured into me. He poured this knowledge into me because Nelson knew he wasn't going to be here forever. Nelson knows he can't serve everybody. He has to have people help him serve. So I just look at myself as a servant of Nelson Nash. I'm serving his message. I'm carrying on his teaching. I'm carrying on his knowledge, and so the legacy just that he left on being able to teach this banking concept to others. So Chris Noggle and I wrote a book called Mapping Out the Millionaire Mystery. And really what we did is we just took what Nelson taught and we put it into the context of our book to just bring additional examples of what Nelson taught us and also kind of turbocharge what Nelson says in his book, Becoming Your Own Banker, which I believe came out in the year 2000. So the book Chris and I did came out, I think it was March or something of 2020, so 20 years later. So really what we're doing is we're just turbocharging what Nelson is already teaching us, but we owe all the credit for our book to Nelson Nash. Now, I mentioned to you this guy, Chris Noggle. Now, Chris Noggle, you may have heard of him before. He had a TV show on HGTV called Risky Builders. He is very active in the real estate world, very knowledgeable on the infinite banking concept. He's actually teaching, traveling around the country, doing Zoom calls, webinars, virtual webinars, podcasts, etc. on this concept. He is definitely somebody that you want to follow. So if you're not following Chris Noggle, N-A-U-G-L-E, Chris is from Buffalo, New York, you need to follow him on your social media, your Instagram, Twitter, Facebook. I'm not a big social media guy. Chris is. So he's definitely somebody that you want to follow, and you can learn a lot from watching and listening to Chris Noggle on this banking concept. So anyway, that's how the infinite banking concept got started. was because Nelson Nash was in all of that debt and he needed to find a way out of it. So how do we apply these principles at the Money Multiplier? How do we apply the infinite banking concept at the Money Multiplier? Well, again, any talk that I do, any seminar, podcast that I do, I always give thanks to Nelson. I always give him the credit. And if I don't do that, then shame on me, right? But I always give him, he's the guy, he is the Mac Daddy, he is the godfather, he's the grandfather of this concept, right? So he is what I owe all of my knowledge to. Maybe I've applied, my knowledge, I've taken what he's given me, and I've discovered more advanced techniques of how even that the concept can be used, but it's all because of Nelson Nash. And what we do at the Money Multiplier is we are 100% the infinite banking concept. This is all we do. And some people say, well, Brent, this is all you do. Well, yeah, that's right. This is all we do. We are 100% infinite banking concept. So if you're wanting to start another process, or if you are not wanting to practice the infinite banking concept that Nelson Nash teaches, then we are probably not the right people for you to be working with. And some people say, or like other agents or other maybe financial coaches or advisors or life agents or whatever, they say, well, I can show them this. I can show the client this, this, and that. I can show them A, B, C, D, and E, or 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Well, great. That's good for you, but this is all we do. We're 100% this process and this method. And let me just ask you this question. If you had a problem with your heart, right? Let's say if there was something going on with your heart, are you wanting to go to the general practitioner, the one that dabbles in a little bit of everything on the body? Or do you want to go to the heart specialist, the one that knows 100% and they focus on the heart and the heart only? Hopefully you're wanting to go to the specialist. So we at the Money Multiplier, the mentors on the Money Multiplier team, we are the specialist on the infinite banking concept, and that's what we do. And we apply the infinite banking principles to what we do in the Money Multiplier. So you're thinking, well, why do I want to become my own banker? Why should I become my own banker? Why shouldn't I continue just to do what everybody else is doing and use the conventional banks out there? Well, great question. And you can do that. I'm not saying you have to get banks out of your life completely. No, you don't. Now, if you were talking to Nelson, Nelson would say, hey, the idea is to get those guys out of our life completely because they're making so much money on our money, and they are. Conventional banks make between 400 and 1,300% annually on the money we leave there each and every year, right? So think about it. How big are banks? Banks are everywhere, right? I don't care what town you live in, small town, big town, rural town, wherever. Whenever you go to the main section of town, you're driving down the main section of town, you get to the stoplight, and there's 4 corners on that stoplight, right? Tell me what at least one building is that you see on one of those 4 corners. That's right, it's a bank. Now, are the banks on the rundown location, bad landscaping, bad architecture, or are they the nicest buildings in town? Yeah, they're the nicest buildings in town, right? Who's paying for all of those? We are. We pay for those, right? So banks make between 400 and 1,300% annually on the money that you leave there. Now, I don't expect you to believe me when I tell you that, but here's what you can do to check it out. Go look at something called BauerFinancial.com, B-A-U-E-R, BauerFinancial.com. You can pull up any bank that you want. I don't care if it's a small bank, a big bank. I don't care if you get the report from this year, last year, 20 years ago. You're going to see in those reports that banks make no less than 400% annually on the money that you leave there each and every year. So all we're going to do is we're going to be the banker in our own life. And by doing that, we're going to apply the principles of the infinite banking concept, exactly what Nelson taught us to do. All right. So why do you want to be your own banker? Because you want to keep control of your financial life, right? You want to be able to pay for things, to buy things, to pay for your debt, pay for your expense, right? You want to be able to recycle and recapture all of the money that's leaving your family. And that's what we teach you to do at the Money Multiplier. So, is it safe? Is this something safe? How much risk am I taking to do this? Well, nobody in your state has ever lost money in a whole life policy in a mutual company that pays dividends, right? Remember, the banking process, the banking concept, the vehicle, the machine that we're going to use to build our wealth is we're going to use a whole life insurance policy in a mutual company that pays dividends. Now, let me be very clear. Listen to what I'm saying. We're using a whole life insurance policy in a mutual company that pays dividends. Not an IUL, not a variable policy, not a term policy. You would not believe the amount of calls or text or emails that I get about, well, I'm going to do the banking concept, but I'm going to do it with my index universal life policy. I think today I had 2 calls, and it's not even noontime. All right, I'm on Central Time. It's not even noon, and I think I've already talked to 2 people today that were telling me, hey, I think it may be better to use an index universal life policy. No. Look, banks are the number 1 purchasers of whole life insurance in the world. As a matter of fact, banks have quadrupled the amount of whole life insurance that they've purchased since 2013. Now, banks are buying whole life. They're not buying UL. They're not buying IUL. They're not buying variable. They're not buying term. They're buying whole life policies. And did you hear what I said? They've quadrupled 4 times the amount that they've purchased since 2012. Now, why are banks buying so much whole life insurance? Is it because they're stupid or they know something the rest of us don't know? That's right. They know something the rest of us don't know. So we're going to mimic and imitate exactly what the wealthy are doing. Whole life insurance, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, has been around for over 200 years. Our tax code has only been here since 1913. There's so much that we can do with this vehicle that you cannot do with any other vehicle on the planet. So we're just going to mimic and imitate what the wealthy are doing. I want you to go look and see. I want you to do some research. If you guys are readers or you want to go back in history and see what's going on, make sure that I'm telling you the truth. I told you that banks are the number 1 purchasers of whole life insurance in the world. You're saying, well, Brent, I hear you're flapping gums and you're moving your lips, and I hear you telling me that, but how do I know it's really true? Well, what you can do is you can go Google something called BOLI, B-O-L-I. It stands for Bank-Owned Life Insurance, and you can see the hundreds of pages that come up about how much whole life insurance conventional banks actually own. So we're just going to mimic and imitate what they're doing, what the wealthy are doing. We're not going to reinvent the wheel. Go look at what the Rockefellers, the Rothschilds, the Morgans, the Stanleys, the Barclays are doing. Look and see how Walt Disney started Disneyland. How did he do it? How did Ray Kroc fund McDonald's? And the mascot we all know today is Ronald McDonald. What about Pampered Chef before Warren Buffett purchased Pampered Chef? J.C. Penney, Foster Farms, Stanford University. How does the school, the University of Michigan, pay their head football coach, Jim Harbaugh? That's right. Through this concept, through this method that we teach, through the whole life insurance policy that's designed specifically and engineered specially for high cash value that you're going to start using immediately. What? Cash value immediately in my policy? I've never heard of that, and I own whole life insurance. I never had any cash value in my policy in the first year, second year, not much in the third year. That's right, because the policy wasn't designed properly. When we design your policy, we design it so it has maximum cash value to be able to use immediately. What's my definition of immediately? Within 30 days. That's how we design your policy. So you cannot go to anybody to get these types of policies. You cannot go to any company, right? I get it. So like as far as life insurance agents are like chiropractors, they're everywhere, right? Well, why can't you go to anybody to get a life insurance policy like this? Why can't you go to your brother-in-law or your sister-in-law that sells life insurance? Here's why. They don't understand this concept. They don't understand it. Even if they told you that they know about the infinite banking concept, I know all about Nelson Nash. I read his book. I've seen that book before. I can help you with that, brother-in-law or sister-in-law. Well, my first question would be is if they know about it, why haven't they told you already? And if they really, truly understand it, here's 3 questions that you want to ask them. 3 questions. Number 1, can they show you how you can borrow at a higher rate of interest than what you're earning? No, they can't. And that's what we teach you, how that can be done. Number 2, can they show you how to recapture and recycle all of the money back for all of the product and services that you're currently buying? For example, so like when you go to buy a car, how do you buy a car? You either pay cash for it, you bank finance it, or you lease it. You have to give money to the car dealer, don't you? They get the money, they give you the car. That's how we buy a car. They get the money, you get the car, transaction is over, everybody walks away happy. Well, no. How about if I show you how to buy the car? And the way that I'm going to buy the car is I'm going to give the money to the car dealer. They're going to give me the car, so they got the money, I have the car. But I'm going to add one step into my financial life. And by doing that, I'm able to recycle and recapture those dollars that I paid out for the car. That's right. Get all the money back for the car that you just bought. How would you like to be able to get all the money back for all the cars you're going to buy, drive, and own for the rest of your life? So not only have the car, but get the money back. Well, let me ask you this. I want you to think of all the cars that you've had, that you've bought, driven, and owned up to this point in your life. How much of the money do you have today? 0, right? 0. Well, if I do nothing else but get you part of the money back, some of the money, most of the money, or all of the money back, hasn't it been a pretty good day? And that's what we teach you. We teach you how to build how to build wealth through your own debts and expenses, right? We show you how to recycle and recapture those dollars that have been leaving your family forever. It's not normal. I know it's not normal thinking. It's not what your parents taught you, your grandparents taught you. It's not what your friends, your colleagues, and your coworkers are doing. This is outside of the box thinking. As Nelson Nash says, if you know what's going on in the world, you'll know what to do. And most people don't know what's going on. So this is what we do at the Money Multiplier. We teach you how to build wealth through your own debts and expenses, through this infinite banking concept, the Money Multiplier method, through this whole life policy in a mutual company that pays dividends, not any whole life policy, one that is specifically designed and engineered for this method. And is it safe? There is no vehicle on this planet with these features and benefits that works this way. And if you can find one, let me know what it is, because I've been looking for 2014. And let me repeat myself. Nobody in your state, no matter where you live, has ever lost money in a whole life policy in a mutual company that pays dividends. It hasn't happened. Go look for it and find it and show it to me. Okay, finally, to close out our podcast for today, let's talk about how you can learn more about this information that I've been sharing with you over the last half hour. What you can do is you can go to our website, www.themoneymultiplier.com. So TheMoneyMultiplier.com. Themoneymultiplier.com. At the bottom of the homepage, there's going to be a little box down there that says Members Area. And I know what you're thinking when you go to the box. Brent, why in the hell do you make it so hard for me to find? Can't we make this a lot larger so we can put it somewhere else where I can get to it easier? Yeah, I know. I'm on my team about that. It needs to be more accessible. But go to the bottom of the homepage where it says Members Area. I want you to click on that, and you're going to be able to view my 90-plus minute presentation on this powerful financial concept. You can stop it, you can rewind it, watch it as many times as you want. As a matter of fact, it's also broken down into 10 individual sections. If you prefer to watch it that way, you can watch 10 individual sections, or you can watch it from start to finish. It's a little over an hour and a half. I think it's 1 hour and 40 minutes. And also, an hour and 40 minutes, you say? Brent, I don't have time for an hour and 40 minutes. That's way too much time. How am I ever going to find time, Brent, to sit down and watch something for an hour and 40 minutes? Well, let me just tell you guys this. This is about your financial life. This is not only about your financial life, it's about the financial life of your spouse, your children, your grandchildren, and future generations to come. So carve out whatever you have to do. Carve out 90 minutes of your day. Split it into 2 days or 3 days if you need to, 30 minutes a day. Maybe you might want to turn off The Bachelor or turn off American Idol or turn off your favorite TV show. Yeah, you might have to skip Bobby's soccer practice or Susie's piano lessons in order to learn, in order to get this knowledge poured into you about how you can take control of your financial life. So I don't want to hear you whining and bitching and belly aching that it's 90 minutes long. This is about your financial life. When you view this information and you see how it works, you will see that it will drastically change your financial life. Look, I hope everybody on here that's listening, I hope I get the opportunity to serve you and to work with you. But even if you don't like me and you don't want to work with me, you need to get this method and this concept in your life and find somebody that's going to teach it to you and start implementing it. It will drastically change your financial life. I promise you, it will drastically change your financial life. I've been teaching this concept now for over 8 years, and I don't know anybody that's mad at me. I don't know anybody that's upset with me that has started this process in their life. I don't know anybody that feels bad that they did it or they wish they wouldn't have. And if there is somebody out there like that, they haven't told me. They haven't came to me and said, Brent, this was the worst thing I ever did. Nobody's telling me, right? So like 91% of my clients come back and they want more. So if this wasn't working for people in their financial life, do you think 9 out of 10 would come back for more? No. So listen, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, I don't care how old you are, how young you are. I don't care how good of health you're in, how bad of health you're in. You need to get this information. You are going to see that age doesn't matter. Health doesn't matter. The amount of money you have doesn't matter. I don't care if you make $10 an hour or $10,000 an hour. Everybody needs to break the bonds of financial slavery that they don't even realize they're in and start taking control of their own financial situation. All right. So again, go to my website, www.themoneymultiplier.com. Go to the bottom of the homepage where it says Members Area to view my 90-plus minute presentation. It's also broken down into 10 individual sections if you prefer to watch it that way. And there is also a downloadable attachment that you can print out. There's also a downloadable attachment that you can print out to follow along with my examples. All right, so you guys have your homework. You know what to do. Hopefully this gave you a little bit of an insight about the infinite banking concept, how it got started, what we do at the Money Multiplier method. So this is our pilot podcast at the Money Multiplier. So there will be many more of these to come. I think we'll be doing these. I think we're doing them on, are we doing them every week on a weekly basis or a monthly basis? I don't know. I guess our team will figure that out. But anyway, tell me your thoughts too. So was this good information? I mean, I have a ton of stuff to bring to you, man. I mean, I've taught this thing in 4-day seminars before. 4 6-hour days seminars, 24 plus hours of information, right? And there's more that I probably haven't even taught so that I can teach. But just know that my mission is to serve you, to help you, to take control of your financial life. It isn't outside of the box thinking. It is a paradigm shift. I would suggest maybe you go watch this. It's called The Backward Bicycle. Go to YouTube. There's a 7.5-minute video. The guy that comes up in the video, he has a hat on, the University of Alabama. I think his name is Dustin. And it's about 7.5-minute video, and it's called The Backward Bicycle. The thing I would really recommend you do before you watch my 90-minute video, go watch that 7.5-minute video, The Backward Bicycle, because that'll get your mind right. That'll get you thinking a little bit differently, because the stuff that we teach is not conventional thinking. It's not what mom and dad taught us, grandma and grandpa. It's not what our friends, colleagues, and coworkers are teaching. This is an outside of the box concept. So keep an open mind. Keep an open mind when you're learning and listening. All right, one last time. Go to themoneymultiplier.com, bottom of the homepage, members area, to view my 90-plus minute presentation. I hope you enjoyed. I appreciate any feedback or comments about what you think about this podcast, or even would entertain any questions or topics that you would like to see covered in the future. Until next time, we'll see you later. Thanks for listening. Take care, everybody.